Sid, let's go down to business. What is the possibility of Jose Mourinho being in charge of Real Madrid on Monday?
On Monday, I don't think that's going to happen. I wouldn't be hugely surprised if he was in charge for the beginning of next season, but I don't think it's going to happen on Monday. I can't see a set of circumstances, even in the event of a poor defeat, I can't see a set of circumstances in which that scenario is provoked. I can't see that happening. I mean, obviously what will happen now is this will happen, and next week you'll play this tape back and say, "You look how wrong you were." But I just don't see it happening.
How much trouble is Santi in going into this game? Obviously, Solari in charge of the 3-0 defeat. And looking at it this weekend, back-to-back Clásico defeats. Not many managers survive that.
No, it's true that not many managers survive that, but you have to bear in mind, I suppose, the context that Santi comes in and is publicly announced as a temporary manager. Then a couple of weeks later, because of course league and federation rules mean they announce him as a permanent manager. They give him a contract that suggests he's a permanent manager, but everybody knows that this is still someone who's in charge because there weren't other options, who's in charge because they needed someone to take over, having got rid of Julian Lopetegui, and that there isn't a real anticipation that he'll continue into next season, unless, of course, the season goes incredibly well. Now, under Solari, I think there is a sense that things have improved. There is a sense that key players are playing better than they did before, and in the case of Vinicius in particular, a player who wasn't playing before is playing regularly and is probably their standout performer. I think that it's true that, of course, they were beaten by Girona in La Liga, and that kind of saw the wheels come off a little bit, and they were beaten by Barcelona in the Copa del Rey second leg. But it's also true that the sensations after that game were that Real Madrid were genuinely quite unlucky, that they'd had more chances than Barcelona, that they'd actually played pretty well, certainly until Barcelona scored the first. You could perhaps even argue until Barcelona scored the second of the goals. And so I don't think we're in a scenario in which, A, it's a good time to change manager and there's an obvious alternative, although, of course, you've floated the name of Mourinho, and I think at some stage that certainly is one that will be taken very, very seriously by the Real Madrid board. B, I'm not sure that you necessarily do it quickly enough in time for a game on Tuesday night against Ajax, which, by the way, they won the first leg. Admittedly, they didn't play well. They won the first leg away from home, so they're in an advantageous position there. And you know, I just don't see what you would gain by doing it now, unless what you want is an ultra short-term kind of injection. But there isn't really a sense at Real Madrid that Solari is the man responsible for what is going wrong. And as I say, it's only 2 games now.
Sid, I promise to talk about the game in a minute, but this Jose Mourinho link fascinates me, because have the Real Madrid fans and board not seen how good Manchester United have been since he left? And have they not forgotten how much chaos Mourinho left Real Madrid in after his first stint there? He wasn't talking to the media, horrible performances on the pitch, tough to watch. What's gone on?
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of addressed some of these issues before, but it's certainly true that what's happened to Manchester United since his departure is another argument against bringing him in. It's another argument that, that doesn't necessarily guarantee and prove 100% that the problem and the only problem was Mourinho, but it certainly argues that quite clearly that things got worse with him and became far, far better without him, and that getting rid of him was beneficial for Manchester United at the very, very least in the short and perhaps medium term. As you say, in terms of the kind of what they remember, the memory of what happened with Mourinho at Real Madrid, I think it's quite difficult to try and make this make sense for people, because you're absolutely right. On the face of it, it was disastrous. It ended very badly. It was absolutely unsustainable. It was, without doubt, a season too far, and everyone wanted that over. And in fact, I think a lot of people didn't even want to go into that season. Mourinho certainly gave the impression throughout that final season that he would have rather have been anywhere. Remember when he turned up at Chelsea and he was asked in that classic question, well, you said you were the special one before, what are you now? And he said, I'm the happy one. And that was because he was desperate to get out of Real Madrid. He was not happy. It wasn't even funny in a kind of pugnacious sort of way. It wasn't funny in a look at him winding people up sort of way. None of the charm was there anymore. It was just deeply unpleasant in that last year. And you got the feeling that actually pretty unpleasant for him as well, that he didn't enjoy it. And yet there's still that pull. And there's that pull with Real Madrid's president, Florentino Perez, that he knows that it's problematic. He knows that it brings difficulties. But there's a bit of him that still looks back on Mourinho and thinks, that was a manager. This is a president who doesn't trust in managers. He doesn't believe in him. He doesn't give them authority. He's only really given authority to one manager, and he still sees Mourinho as the only person that's confronted the dressing room, that's taken them on, that's genuinely been a star, that's genuinely had the gravitas that he wants in a manager, despite all the other things. And so right now, I have no doubt that Florentino Perez is in this position where he's mentally thinking to himself, I kind of really want to do this, but I know the risks. And I think that's a battle that he's got to decide on. And he has approached Mourinho previously to say, you know, what do you think about coming back? I don't know if this will happen, but it is far more plausible than it looks on the face of it. And from the outside, you're right. Everyone looks at it and thinks, this is bizarre. How could this happen? But it could.
I want to use the word pugnacious again, but I don't know what it means.
Be careful.
Should we talk about the game or Mourinho, Shaq?
Whichever you want, Dan.
Choose, because the Mourinho thing just is bonkers.
It
blows my mind.
No, it doesn't make any sense to me at all, other than Florentino Perez quite clearly likes Jose Mourinho and sees him as maybe the one to come back in and maybe restore order is a poor choice of words. I know
you
when
cannot
you're
even
talking
get through it. You cannot even get through your...
When you're talking about Jose Mourinho, the thing is, in his first spell, you look at the main elements. The main elements against Jose Mourinho at the time, Ronaldo, Iker Casillas, they are now gone. Maybe time is drawing at a close for the likes of Sergio Ramos and Marcelo. As a result, maybe Mourinho makes sense. But otherwise, I really can't figure out Florentino Perez's thinking.
Yeah. You didn't convince me, Shaq.
I wasn't convinced myself, to be honest.
Well, I noticed.